This is the first one we're going to do. This is, I guess, 101 for stance work. And we're going to talk about the stance itself and posture and then the floor compass. Because stance and posture are actually two different things. You can have a really good stance and have really shitty posture. And you can also have really good posture, but it's resting on top of a really shitty stance. So we're going to talk about those things. But basically we're going to cover what is a good stance, what is good posture. Posture we'll get into more detail later when we get into striking and whether you're a righty or a lefty, what you're holding and things like that, because that changes. The general guidelines of posture are all the same though. And we'll talk about head spine alignment and that kind of thing. Then we'll talk about the floor compass, how it's laid out, how you use it, where you should be on it, the angles and that sort of thing. So starting off with stance. Okay, so the way that this works with stance is you want your feet, I don't care how you stand, I really don't. There's just a few general guidelines that you're going to want to follow. Your stance should be, your feet should be roughly about shoulder width apart, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Your toes, now your toes are your gun sights, and we'll talk about that more when we get into talking about the different strikes and things like that and how to generate power. But your toes are your gun sights. And it doesn't matter what discipline you study, if it's kickboxing, if it's boxing, if it's Filipino stick fighting, if it's Japanese art or Chinese art that talks about, it's all the same. Your feet should be no more, your toes should point no more than 45 degrees apart from one another. Okay? If you're like this, yes, there are styles that stand like this. If you're like this, you're putting undue stress on your hips, your knees, and your ankles. It is bad for you. And that's not a subjective thing. Okay, I worked at a human performance laboratory where we worked on this very thing. This is bad for you. Bring that thing in to 45 degrees or less. You can even bring it out to where they're facing the same direction. That's fine too. This, open, 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 that's bad for you. All right? And you'll feel that. I mean, you'll feel it if you try to throw material, or try to throw out your striking material from that point, from that position. So your feet, no more than 45 degrees from one another and in orientation. Your feet should be roughly shoulder width apart, maybe a little narrower, maybe a little wider, depending upon how your hips are built. See, the way that your hips are built, the way that your pelvis sets up, and the way that the femur is basically a bone with a ball on it, okay? The acetabulum, okay? The way that that sets into the hip determines the width that your feet should be at. It has nothing to do with how tall you are or how short you are or how heavy or light you are. It has to do with the angle of your hips, how your pelvis sets, at what angle your pelvis sets, and at what angle your femurs actually slide into that pelvis. Because everyone, I mean, they can be anywhere from 90 degrees almost to almost straight. So that's a big thing. I mean, you'll need to figure out what's comfortable for you and how you could move. That's one of the reasons we do footwork drills. It's not just to train the footwork, but to teach your body how it's supposed to move. Not, okay, I can do this, I understand that. That's not the point. It's not the point of understanding. It's the point of, I do this like this because this is how my body is made, and I've done it like this enough to know that that's the way I should do it. It's training your body to work the way it's supposed to. Not, do I know this material and move on. Okay? So that's one of the reasons that we do drills. We do a lot of drills. All right? So, feet, no more than 45 degrees in rotation from one another. Feet, roughly about hip width, maybe a little wider, maybe a little narrower. Hips should be sunken and relaxed. And what I mean by that, in Chinese martial arts, they have a principle they call song. Song means to hang or to be relaxed. It's like a rubber band that's pulled to where it's not stretching, but it's also not sunken. That's song or relaxed. Okay? Your hips should be not pulled up under, not stuck back, but just kind of sitting in that pocket. Just tighten your butt cheeks just a little bit, and you'll see your hips kind of roll in. You'll feel it, and you'll feel that back leg will all of a sudden be loaded with power. Be able to issue off of that. Okay, that's the way your hips should be set up and oriented. Okay, and then we talk about, so that's your waist from the waist down. Those are the three things you need to know from the waist down. Rotation of your feet should be no more than 45 degrees. Hips to foot ratio, feet should be roughly about the same width, give or take, of your hips, regardless if you're standing here or here. And your hips should be slightly tucked in. Butt should be just tight, just a little bit tight, not like clenching like you're trying to not go to the restroom, but just a little bit of a tuck, okay? And then we also want to talk about posture. Posture's from the waist up. Okay, posture really has to do with more your spine than anything else. So when we're talking about posture, it changes, like I said, from left foot to right foot, left-handed to right-handed, goofy-footed stance kind of thing. So for instance, if I'm a right-handed fighter and I stand like this, that's different than if I'm a left-handed fighter and I'm standing like this. Okay? It's a different thing. So it changes. And you need to understand that's the thing. I cannot be a right-handed fighter and be like, oh, I like what that left-handed person's doing, and just adapt that. You can, but that's not the best thing for you. There's a better way to learn to fight left-handed than just emulating a left-handed person. Just like a left-handed person can't just emulate a right-handed person and expect to get good. It's not how it works. Okay? There's a lot going on that we'll talk about that later though. So posture has to do from the waist up. General rules on posture, just like general rules on footwork. Posture is not military cotillion, chest up, shoulders back kind of thing. That's not what you want. You want your shoulders dropped forward a little bit. You want a slight curve. And you want your chest kind of caved in a little bit. Okay? And that allows you to spring. Okay? And be able and move quickly. Anyone that stands like this when they're fighting, what do you see? Well, if I'm a spearman, I see a target. Really, if I'm anybody, I see a target. But if I'm a spearman, I see a huge target. Okay? So you want to protect yourself, right? It's a combat art. And in any combat art, if you're standing up straight, you're going to get caught. So we want to round our shoulders a little bit. We want to drop them a little bit. We're going to suck that under, and we're kind of making a C shape here. Really shallow, but a C shape right here, and there's a C shape right here. Shoulder to shoulder, collarbone to hips, there's a little bit of a C shape. Okay? And that's kind of the posture you want. You don't want to be up here like this. All like elbows akimbo kind of thing. That's great for some things, but that's not what we're doing right now. So make sure your posture is correct. The other thing is your head. You want to keep your head up. You want to be eyes forward and eyes engaged. That's a big thing too. A lot of people, they'll look at what they're doing, but their eyes aren't locked in. Their eyes aren't engaged. In the Longfellow poem about Thor, he says, "Thine eyes are lightning," and that's the way you want to be. You want your eyes engaged in your opponent. You want your eyes like locked in. Boom. Okay. I'll use a lot of analogies as we're going on about how you're a delivery system, and your weapon is the warhead. Well, your eyes are the navigational system, the tracking system for that warhead. You'll lock in, and you'll deliver the warhead using your body mechanics. And we'll talk about that as we go along too. So, again, reviewing all of this real quick. Your feet, orientation no more than 45 degrees. Your toes should not be pointing more than 45 degrees away from one another. Your feet should be roughly shoulder width, give or take the width of your hips, or width hips, rather. Shoulder and hips, roughly the same width for most people. Women are a little different, but most men are about the same. And in this case, you will use your hips, not your shoulders. Okay? In all instances, use your hips, not your shoulders. So that's the thing. And then your hips, you want them slightly tucked in. Not a lot, a little bit tucked in. Okay? And you want to be light and mobile, which that allows for. And then your posture. You want to be upright. You don't want to be overbounded. You don't want to be leaning forward. You want to be upright. Okay? Now, there'll be instances where you'll overbound. There'll be stances where you'll overbound. This is a general stance. Okay? Just like when we hit these footworks, there'll be times I'll say, don't cross your feet, ever. But then later on, I'll say, now you can cross your feet. But no overbound your stance. Keep yourself upright. Keep yourself kind of concave in the shoulders, kind of concave in the spine. Keep your head up. Keep your eyes focused. What you do with your hands, I'm not concerned with right now. Okay? If this were a martial arts class, I'd give you some kind of a beggar's hand position or elbows akimbo kind of position or a position to be in. But that's not what we're doing right now. Right now, we're just kind of wherever. So hands behind the back, hands crossed in front. Hold it like you're holding a sword and shield or however. Whatever your posture is fine. Whatever your hand position is fine. Okay? And that is the basics of your stance and your posture. Now we're going to talk about this circle, this floor work. Okay? And on this floor work or floor compass, we have, I have a big circle here, but you can just imagine that it is bisected 4 times. Straight down the middle, straight across, in a cross pattern. And then also at 45-degree angles in an X pattern. So that it makes like a chaos symbol or a compass rose or something to that effect, whatever you want to call it. Okay? Now your angles are working off of these 45s and these 90s. Those are the angles that you want to learn to move on. And you want to learn to move on those angles while both being defensive and offensive. I want to be able to move back while striking with power, move back while blocking. In both 45-degree angles and straight back, in both forward 45-degree angles and straight forward, and of course 90 degrees to either side. Now, can you move at other angles? Of course you can. But if we trained every single degree on this compass, it would be ridiculous. So we just hit those 8. And why we hit those 8 is because those are the 8 ones, the 8 angles that you'll find yourself moving in general direction of more often than anything else. Okay? Placement is you're going to stand right in the middle of it. Okay? So you'll make your design and you'll stand right in the middle. And I don't have one taped out. I'm not going to put it on my wrestling mat, but I'll send you a photo of what I'm talking about. And you would stand right in the center of it and you'd work off the angles in whatever general direction that you needed to work in. And you'll do your footwork drills from there. And we'll get into the footwork drills as we go into them. And one of the things that you want to also understand is when we're doing footwork drills, there's a lot of different ways to do footwork because there's a lot of different ways to fight. A lot of different mentalities on spacing and distancing and things like that. We'll talk about those. But the most important one to understand right now is kind of, as a beginner, is kind of the rock'em sock'em robot kind of mentality, the getting in the pocket kind of mentality, because that's where you can learn most of your blows at. Most of your sword blows can be done from there, and because you're a beginner and because you're learning, that's a good place to be. And what I mean by that is we get into a distance where you're standing there and I'm standing here and you're directly across from me, and you can throw a shot and kill me and I can throw a shot and kill you. So we'll drill from there. You'll move forward, I'll move back. You'll move back, I'll move forward. You'll move to your left, I'll move to my right. You'll move to your right, I'll move to my left. And we'll just stay equidistant from one another. You'll hit off this 45-degree angle, I'll come back this 45-degree angle. And we'll stay square with each other, which for me is a nightmare. But that's the way a lot of people like to fight. You'll notice in the SCA and in other stick fighting groups, a lot of the combat is linear. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if somebody takes an angle, the other person takes the same angle, and they just start doing back and forth on a different orientation. So that's something to understand and something to realize as we do these. This is only one way to do it. We'll talk about the push step. We'll talk about the pull step. We'll talk about the passing step and how they're used. And once we get past those, then we'll get out of this fighting in the pocket mode, and we'll start working on these angles a little bit better. And that's better, generally better for people who are quick or small and don't want to stand there and slug it out. Now, you guys can use all those same techniques. You can be a small person and stand in that pocket and wail. You can. Because if you have a good defense, it doesn't matter how big they are. If you can block what they're throwing, it doesn't matter how big they are. So if you can have a good defense, you can pocket up, you can hunker down, boom, 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 wait for your shot and launch and make it work. But generally, it's a wiser idea for you guys to have that good defense, but also be able to step out, take those double step angles, turn, move, crack, take that leg, move, crack, take that leg, that kind of a thing. Bring people, chop people down, wrap people up, and get them out of the way. But that's what footwork is. You can learn all those sword blows you want, but if you can't get to where you want to go to kill them, you can't use it. So that's what we're talking about. That's 101. All right? Thank you. And we'll see you here real soon with push steps, pull steps, and pass steps.